Good morning. Welcome to the First Parish Church of Stone Acton, a welcoming and spiritual community. My name is June McKnight and I serve as the chair of the worship committee. For those visiting FPC for the first time, we welcome you. Please let us know you are here by filling out one of our visitor information cards in the pews and hand it to an usher or drop it in the plate. Our minister staff and board are listed on the front of the order of service. Please feel free to ask me or any of these people for more information. If you would like a large print order of service or hymnal or an assisted listening device, please ask our ushers. Our assisted listening devices are small radios. Anyone is welcome to use one of these to listen to the service from another space in or around the building. Nursery care is available during the service. For K through 5 children usually attend the first part of the service and then leave for classes. And once a month we have a children's chapel where children begin their time in the community room. After the service, please join us for coffee and conversation in our fellowship hall, which is down the stairs or elevator at the other end of the building, or in a breakout room if you're joining us online. Our minister, the Reverend Cindy Landrum, is currently on sabbatical. During this time, Reverend Susan Sahusky Brown is our sabbatical minister. I have one announcement. Today we have a concert here in the sanctuary at 4 o'clock. The Improbable Beasts will be playing. I don't know, Chris, if you have anything else to say.
If you might have heard one of their players, John Russell, came and did a clarinet concert here. He's played at services. And he is bringing his bass clarinet ensemble. So it's not the clarinet, it's the big version of that. And there are 10 of them. And they're all fabulous players. And it might sound like a strange thing, but it's so cool. I really, really recommend it. And it will be loud, just warning.
So today I'm delighted to welcome our guest speaker, Matta, Mathew, Haide, Zheng. Welcome, Matta. Matta is a third-year Masters of Divinity student at Harvard Divinity School, studying the anthropology of Buddhism and racial capitalism. Matta has and continues to serve as a hospital, an LGBTQ+ higher education chaplain, political organizer and campaigner, and Buddhist community leader. At the age of 13, Matta discovered Buddhism through the complicated thicket of Yukio Mishima's fiction. Though raised in a staunchly atheist household, they were called to Buddha Dharma almost immediately. Almost immediately, Buddhism was a spiritual salve to Matta's hopelessness from being roundly rejected after coming out of the closet as queer. Since then, Matta's practice, understanding, and passion for Buddhism has grown to infuse pragmatic hope for ultimate and final liberation for all sentient beings in every aspect of their life, whether personal, professional, or beyond. Today, Matta is a devoted queer Buddhist whose practice and passion extends to every corner of the Asian Buddhist diaspora. Most currently, Matta is authoring his Masters of Divinity thesis, which theorizes a new way of understanding the religious tradition as diaspora Buddhism. Now let us come together for a time of singing and worship.
Good morning. Good morning. You'll hear more from me later. Thank you so much, June, for the wonderful introduction. For now, I'll just read our opening words in Chalice lighting. From Zen Master Seung Sunim. Good and evil have no self-nature. Holy and unholy are empty names. In front of the door is the land of stillness and quiet. Spring comes, grass grows by itself. And now for the chalice lighting. We light this flame to remind us love is the center. As we grow and connect, mature and deepen, love remains the center. When the light of truth burns all else away, love remains. By Eric Hepburn.
Please rise for opening hymn. The lyrics for the hymn are in the bulletin.
May I be empty and open to receive the light. May I be empty and open to receive. May I be full and open to receive the light. May I be full and open to receive. May I be empty and open to receive the light. May I be empty and open to receive. May I be full and open to receive the light. May I be full and open to receive. May I be empty and open to receive the light. May I be empty and open to receive. May I be full and open to receive the light. May I be full and open to receive. May I be empty and open to receive the light. May I be empty and open to receive. May I be full and open to receive the light. May I be full and open to receive.
Please remain standing for our covenant and affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We would like to acknowledge that this service is being held by a community that gathers on the stolen traditional lands of the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, Pawtucket, and Wampanoag people. We pay respect to all those Indigenous peoples who nourished this land before us, and we strive to do likewise.
Good morning. I know we just have a few of our little ones here, so if you want to come down or up, you can, but I'll leave it up to you. Good morning. And I had them sit here so that I can see all of you better. Have any of you ever been in school and your teacher asked a question that you didn't know the answer to? So you kind of slump down in your chair, right? Or you look at the floor or your feet because you're like, please don't call on me. Please don't call on me. Please don't call on me. I used to teach adults, and I'd always tell them, I still see you. Like, right? We do that anyway. But when I started to learn about our topic for today, that was me. I was kind of like, oh, please don't call on me. Please don't call on me. Please don't call on me. I was like, I don't know about. Am I okay, Chris? Okay. It's like, oh, that's a topic that I don't know much about, right? Before I became a Unitarian Universalist, I was a Methodist. And after my divorce, I decided to find another church to go to. And my oldest two, Brad, Sean, Kennedy, we hopped from church to church to church to church to church. And every time we'd come out of religious education, the teacher would always say, Bradshaw asked too many questions. He just needs to listen to what I say and believe it. Well, I always taught him it's okay to ask why. Right? And they said it's not okay. So you go to the next church. Bradshaw asked too many questions. He just needs to listen and believe. We went to another church. Bradshaw asked too many questions. And I was like, oh my goodness, we're never going to find anywhere to go. We go to a UU church, and the teacher comes upstairs, and she says, Bradshaw asked a lot of questions. I'm like, here we go again. And she says, and some of them I could answer. And I was like, what? And she says, and some of them, I told him we would have to look that up together. And some of them I told him, I'm not sure. Maybe we can find the answer, but maybe we won't. And sometimes that's okay. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I had to remind myself, Rayla, it's okay to not know everything, right? And I talked to people in our congregation who were Buddhists, and I talked to some of my friends, and I talked to our wonderful speaker, and I said, you know what? I'm still a little confused, but it's okay to just admit that I don't know. And I'm one of those people where I feel like I have to know everything. I have to have all the answers. I have to be perfect. And so today, well, Dante already knows that I'm not. I'm admitting that I just don't know, and that's okay.
This is the time in our service when we share our joys and sorrows, and I'd like to invite Ingrid Holcomb, one of our lay ministers, forward to help us do that.
Good morning. As many or most of you know, this is our time to share in community the ups and downs in our lives, to be held by each other in community, beloved community. The way it goes is I'll read one from online and one from the lay ministers. And then within the sanctuary, if you're willing and able, you can stand and give your name and speak directly into the microphone, even if you hate it, because all these lovely congregants online will hear virtually nothing of what you say unless you use the mic. And people like me in the congregation, in the sanctuary, are aided by the mic. So we have received one. Thank you. I don't hear anything, so I will move on. And it's our tradition now to light 2 final candles. Sorry about that. Glad I'm not the only one. 2 final candles, one for the cost of war, and another for all those joys and sorrows in our hearts that we have not been able to express to one another this morning.
This reading is by Parker J. Palmer. It's an excerpt from A Hidden Wholeness. We all need other people to invite, amplify, and help us discern our inner teacher's voice for at least 3 reasons. The journey toward inner truth is too taxing to be made solo. Lacking support, the solitary traveler soon becomes weary or fearful and is likely to quit the road. The path is too deeply hidden to be traveled without company. Finding our way involves clues that are subtle and sometimes misleading, requiring the kind of discernment that can happen only in dialogue. The destination is too daunting to be achieved alone. We need community to find the courage to venture into the alien lands to which the inner teacher may call us. Please rise in body or spirit for hymn 1009.
I breathe out love when I breathe in.
Hopping Over the Surface of Life by Doug Kraft. When I was a kid, I liked to skip stones on lakes. If I threw a flat stone at the correct angle with enough speed and energy, it would kiss the surface and leap into the air again and again. Now, if we have too much stuff in our lives, our attention skips from one object to another without really enjoying anything. If we have too many activities, our attention jumps from past to future without settling into the present. If we have too many opinions, well, we end up thinking about how things should be without fully seeing how things are. Happiness and ease, it flows from the bottom of the lake. They aren't found hopping over the surface of life. We have to slow down enough to settle into the depths. Joy and ease are simple and uncomplicated. Having lots of things to do, stuff to manage, places to go, and opinions to consult makes life complicated. Practices that cultivate simplicity do two things. One, they reduce the amount of stuff, activities, preferences, so we have a better chance of settling into the present. They get the outward to resonate a little better with the happiness, joy, and ease in our depths. And two, they help us become more aware of our relationship to stuff, experience, and thought.
This month, we share our weekly offering with RIA House. RIA stands for Ready, Inspire, Act, and you can read more about this organisation on their website, readyinspireact, all one word, .org. The morning offering will now be greatly accepted.
Hello again. I'm sounding okay? Yes. Great. Before I begin, I just want to extend my gratitude to you all for welcoming me here as a guest, to June for being so wonderful to coordinate and liaise with, and for Chris. It's Chris who passed along the message to Harvard Divinity School, which is how I connected with you all, as well as your wonderful Reverend on sabbatical, who's the one who initially set me up. So I'm so grateful to all of you, and thank you for giving me some of your time today. And I also want to pick up on one of the notes about not knowing. And I want to reassure everyone that what I'm going to talk about today is complicated, and people spend many, many lifetimes trying to figure it out. But in Buddhism, not knowing is actually a destination, not a starting point. It's a place we intentionally cultivate on the path towards freedom. And so I hope you can all feel that as attainment rather than an impediment to your spiritual progress. One final note is that the readings for today are included at the back of your program for you to follow along and to look at afterwards. And I will also be available at coffee hour to answer a few questions should they arise. All right. Section 3 of the Diamond Sutra. The Buddha said, "All who undertake the practice of meditation should cherish one thought only. When I attain perfect wisdom, I will liberate all sentient beings in every realm of the universe, whether they be egg-born, womb-born, moisture-born, or miraculously born, those with form, those without form, those with perception, those without perception, and those with neither perception nor non-perception. So long as any form of being is conceived, I must allow it to pass into the eternal peace of nirvana, into that realm of nirvana which leaves nothing behind, and to attain final awakening. And yet, although immeasurable, innumerable, and unlimited beings have been liberated, truly no being has been liberated. Why? Because no bodhisattva who is a true bodhisattva entertains such concepts as a self, a person, a being, or a living soul. Thus, there are no sentient beings to be liberated and no self to attain perfect wisdom." This is one passage from the Diamond Sutra, a highly revered scripture in many schools of Buddhism, which was, in fact, the first book to ever be mechanically printed in human history. This scripture so perfectly confounds us. In the first half, the great teacher, the world-honored one, the Buddha himself, outlines the goal of all Buddhist practice, which is to liberate all beings, all sentient beings, even inconceivable beings, like the supposed phantasms who are both formless and perceptionless. This is a difficult but self-evidently noble goal. But in the second half, the Buddha reverses track completely. Suddenly, we are told that nobody has yet to be liberated because there is no body. Again, the sutra reads, "There are no sentient beings to be liberated." This in of itself is confusing enough. But then the Buddha has to rub salt in the wound, telling us that the whole project of liberation and wisdom was never really the point in the first place. So, I ask you, how are we supposed to understand this scripture's seeming self-sabotage? This convoluted sutra, in my view, captures precisely where the spiritual and social projects of liberation fuse into one practice, one philosophy, one perfectly lived wisdom, which is this: we are already free because there was nobody to be freed in the first place. Therefore, we pursue freedom by following the Buddha and all the paths to liberation. And for me, that is the key word of what it means to be a Buddhist: liberation. Here in the US, over a lifetime, I have learned and studied that there are very dominant stereotypes of Buddhism with great power and great wealth backing them up, which are superficially good, even pleasurable, yet divested of any real charge for liberation. These versions of Buddhism are all about individual breath and calm and the sensation of peace. They are about feeling and being, quote unquote, Zen, meditation apps on your phone, and the cure-all called mindfulness. Have you ever noticed how these things are universally praised without any glimmer of nuance or critique? I too value being calm, peaceful, and grounded. But even before I could put it into words, I long knew something was amiss in this status quo. And as I dug deeper, I learned this: these stereotypes, these tropes, are perhaps the most pernicious kind of social violence. Violence which disguises itself, which renders itself invisible, which hides so perfectly behind the veil of euphemism and metaphor. In fact, these stereotypes of Buddhism have a deep and wide history of colonialism, exploitation, and white supremacy. These stereotypes were first constructed by the earliest of European colonizers arriving to conquer Buddhist Asia. We know from reading the journals and notes of those very same colonizers that they saw the indigenous Asian Buddhists as, quote, savage and primitive subhumans. They saw these inconvenient Orientals as obsessed with ritual and chant and magic, which frightened and disturbed the European colonizers. But those white men also believed they saw the glimmer of an ancient Aryan religion standing behind the cultural nonsense and noise of the primitive Asian Buddhists. And this was the original, earliest Buddhism in the colonial imagination. And so the colonizer assigned himself the white man's burden of, quote unquote, rescuing Buddhism from the Asian. And by rescuing, the great Sri Lankan Buddhist and anthropologist Gananath Obiasekere argued, these early colonizers were actually disillusioned with, yet homesick for, the institutional Christianity they had grown up with, and yet been deeply disillusioned with. So their notion of Buddhism was really an empty template through which they could recreate a Protestant Christianity with an Oriental name. It was always, and perhaps continues to be, all about the colonizer and his complexes. As a child, I myself learned that I was Asian, not from my own family or immigrant community, but from surviving within white culture. Films, television, novels, and other Orientalist media were the touchstones which taught me that we Asians were mystical, exotic, ancient, animalistic, and otherworldly. Even, one might say, not quite human. By college, these mystical texts were replaced by white scholars' armchair theorizing about the quote-unquote essence of China, Asia, and the so-called East. Who was it that said that colonization is complete when the colonized dreams of herself in the language of the colonizer? Can you understand this cruelty done to me and so many others in childhood of only knowing my Asian selfhood through the distorted funhouse mirror of whiteness? And can you believe me when I share with you just how soul-crushing it is to keep encountering that self-fulfilling prophecy in college, in graduate school, and beyond? The uncomfortable truth about that self-fulfilling prophecy is that somehow being Buddhist is now profitable for some forms of white supremacy. And I am more and more confounded by how the project of whitewashed Buddhism is not only about converting to Buddhism, but also doing everything to act, speak, dress, eat, and even think as Asian. So I will amend that earlier quote and say that colonialism is ongoing because the colonizer is learning to dream of himself in the language of the colonized. We should like to wake up. After all, I come here because it was Buddhism that rescued my suicidal younger self. I had just come out as queer to violent rejection from my family, friends, and community, and in a series of unprovoked mystical experiences, somehow Buddha Dharma found me and showed me the luminous path to liberation. Not some esoteric, exotic, alien life, but my beautifully, gorgeously, mundane, quotidian, and normal, everyday existence. A quote from section 17 of the Diamond Sutra. An aspiring Buddha who thoroughly understands the principle of no self and no dharma as the true self and the true dharma is to be considered an authentic aspirant. The sutra now draws further conclusions from the first section we encountered. There is no self, no dharma, even no Buddha, which is fundamentally or essentially real. This is a teaching which for many when they first encounter it is profoundly confusing, even disturbing, as it could be misinterpreted for being nihilistic. So here is a great correction I have to this misunderstanding, which arises, I think, from a colonial orientation towards Buddhism. Many think that the first tenet of Buddhism, the first noble truth of the Four Noble Truths, is that life is suffering. What I've learned from my teachers and masters and experienced myself is that this is basically a complete misreading. I think the first noble truth is not that life is inherently suffering. Life is joy and bliss itself. Unfortunately, we just happen to misunderstand it. The Buddhist path is to heal that misunderstanding, which is that things are permanent, that things are everlasting. If life is already bliss and already joy, then this would mean, oh so radically, that from the beginning, samsara, the Buddhist term for the world of suffering, is nirvana, the Buddhist term for the world of liberation. Yes, I said what I said. Suffering is liberation. Samsara is nirvana. They are one and the same in that both do not exist in any final and permanent form. We do not need to escape this world to discover freedom. We can find it right here, right now, right within us. Nothing needs to change. So what I believe that Buddhism teaches all of us, Buddhist identifying or not, is that all that remains for us to do is the cosmically ultimate, yet ultimately simple task of waking up to the potential for freedom which is already here, already realized. Yes, we can be free. We were always free. We were born to be free. We have come long and far from where we started, and yet we end right where we began. We are in a very particular and strange moment in human history of post-colonial collapse. Not just the global political economy, but our very moral economy is bankrupt to the core. We know, and we have long known, about the anchors of genocidal settler colonialism, of the brutal exploitation that is the core of capitalism, and of the rapidly extinguishing opportunity to reverse course on our path towards planetary annihilation. I do not pretend to have the answers to these problems, and I also do not think the Diamond Sutra, the Buddhist religious tradition, nor any wisdom tradition can tell us exactly what to do. That's up to us. And yet these anxieties, I think, are often putting the cart before the horse, because we cannot begin to think and plan about the pragmatic specifics of liberation until we are first thoroughly and gutturally convinced of the possibility for liberation in the very first place. This is where I hope to have shown where the wisdom encoded in the Diamond Sutra shines the intervening light, the wisdom which can be our Deus ex machina. For the sutra is teaching us that no discourse, no structure, no oppression is permanent and fixed, nor could it even begin to compare to the potential energy of our transcendent selves. Liberation here is not an entity, nor a singular event, or even a state of being to achieve. It is the dynamo of freedom from all limitation, including and especially our limited notions of ourselves. What we call Buddha, even, is just a gap. By which I mean the Buddha is simply embodied transcendence herself. Buddhism is merely the social program for collective transcendence. One of the most consistent and heart-filling teachings my masters have given me is that we are never containable, definable, limitable to any concept, category, or institution. This is the joy of emptiness, the bliss of no self, the unconditional and unconditioned grace of forgiveness and rebirth. But let me also be clear that liberation need not be a spectacle nor a crisis. In fact, it's usually not. Most times, it is corporeal, it is mundane, it is everyday and spectacularly boring. Liberation is birth. Liberation is death. Liberation is what lies between death and rebirth. Liberation is being young. It is being old. It is tears of joy. It is being well. It is being sick. Liberation is the freedom to do nothing, go nowhere, be nobody. These life-saving things like Buddhism, we have missed their point entirely if we think that they are the static, final, or everlasting goal. If we think to ourselves, when I'm finally finished with becoming myself, becoming Buddhist, becoming wise, becoming anything, then I will be free. Then I will be saved. If we think like this, we have missed the point entirely. And the point is these things, like Buddhism, when they are fully realized, transcend themselves. When they are fully manifested, they are gone. In your own life, have you noticed how impossible it is to change anything significant about yourself until you have already fully, completely, and unquestioningly accepted yourself as you already are, devastating flaws and all? From where I stand, I think the bigger picture works just the same. As the Diamond Sutra concludes, so shall we. Section 31. So you should see or view all of the fleeting world. A star at dawn, a bubble in the stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. When the Buddha had finished speaking, the monks and nuns, the pious laymen and women, the bodhisattvas, and the whole world with its gods, asuras, and gandharvas were filled with joy at the teaching, and taking it to heart, they went their separate ways. Thank you. Please rise in body or spirit for a hymn. I invite you to hold this departing prayer in your heart. All the great Buddhas, the queer Buddhas, the trans Buddhas, the deviant Buddhas, the incarcerated Buddhas, the undocumented Buddhas, the war survivor Buddhas, the celestial Buddhas, the hell realm Buddhas, the Buddhas without form, the Buddhas with form, and the Buddhas neither with form nor without form. May they be with me, with us, with all those seen and unseen, remembered and forgotten, guiding all beings in all lifetimes, in all realms, towards full and final liberation. Namo Amitofo, Namo Amitofo, Namo Amitofo.